Welcome into the FNIA podcast with a couple legends of the game. You know, Tony Dungy right there in the middle, Hot Rod Rodney Harrison. I am Jack Collinsworth. So there is some free agency moves, gentlemen, and some free agency surprises, we may say. Let's start with the New York Giants. They signed Jameis Winston, they signed Russell Wilson, and they hold the third overall pick as well. And that potentially could be a quarterback. So, Rodney, I'll start with you. What's running through your mind looking at the offseason moves up there in New York?
I actually like the Giants' moves at quarterback, getting two veteran guys that are smart, guys that is going to come in and really stabilize the locker room. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a guy to come in and really just give them some hope. And I think these two guys give them. And if I'm holding the number 3 pick, if Shedeur Sanders, if he's available, I'm definitely picking him up. If he's not available, then I look to maybe the pass rusher, Abdul Carter, because, I mean, this is a guy that's going to have to transition in Kayvon Thibodeau's position because eventually he's going to go on and make a lot of money. So if I can't get Shedeur Sanders at 3, I'm picking the pass rusher, but I'm glad I got these two veteran quarterbacks, Coach.
Well, let me ask you this, Rod. If you are taking Shedeur, why do you sign 2 veteran quarterbacks in the offseason? I like the fact of signing one of them and then saying, okay, I'm going to let that guy train Shedeur. But I think what this says to me is maybe they don't feel good about that number 3 pick, or they feel like I can trade that down and pick up some other players and get some weaponry. I'm just curious why you think they signed both of these guys.
I just think that quarterback was a big problem for last year, and I think they wanted to attack the issue. And I think signing Jameis, he's not making a lot of money. Russell's making $10.5 million guaranteed, up to $21 million, I guess.
Which is not a lot for a quarterback now.
Right. That's all I'm saying. So if you get these two veteran guys, whether it was, if Russell gets hurt, then you have another veteran that you can bring right in. You don't have to worry about going to a young guy. And plus, they're cheap. So why not? I think Shedeur Sanders is the perfect fit. He knows how to handle the New York media. He's got a big personality. I think this is a perfect fit, Jack, for him. If the Cleveland Browns don't grab him at 2.
Good point. Good point. Do you feel like, Coach, either of these guys would be the starter? Like when you look at Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson in the same quarterback room, and let's say they do add Sanders to that group, who's the starting quarterback in your mind looking at that trio?
Well, to me, it depends on what you think about that quarterback at number 3. To me, if I'm drafting a surefire guy or somebody I think is going to be my guy at number 3, I'm not getting 2 guys in there to compete with him. I maybe get one guy who's going to be the mentor. But I'm going to say that's my quarterback and roll with it. To me, this is kind of telling me, hey, we're not so sure about this number 3 pick, or we've got a little trade going on. We've got the ability to move down. We're going to get 2 or 3 other really, really good players, and I'm going to roll with these 2 quarterbacks.
Is it simply you're hesitant because they went out and got 2 veteran quarterbacks? Yeah. You would have felt totally different if it was Russell Wilson and a young quarterback?
Yeah, or Jameis Winston and a young quarterback. Yeah, I would have felt different about it. Hey, I got my security blanket. I got my guy that can hold up. But I'm rolling with this number 3 pick, whoever it is.
But that's exactly why they did it, Coach. All 3 guys basically are cheap options. If you draft a young quarterback, he's a cheap option. Russell Wilson's a cheap option, and Jameis Winston is a cheap option. So now you have 3 guys competing. Who's ever best, if it's Russell Wilson, who I believe will win the starting job, and then if something were to happen to him because he's getting a little older, then maybe Jameis Winston can take over. You don't have to go right now to the rookie quarterback. So that's why I was excited about the Giants getting 2 quarterbacks, because I know if they do get Sanders at 3, it's not a lot of pressure on him to play right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to play out in the New York media, though, with all those guys there?
Hey, a lot of fun and games. That's all I can say.
That's it. It's a little Pittsburgh Steelers-esque. I mean, what we saw from Pittsburgh this past year. Let's throw some money, some cheap options at the quarterback spot. Let's bring in Russell. Let's bring in Fields. Now let's flip it and look at Pittsburgh, because they brought in both those guys. They used both of those guys, and Russell was banged up early in the year. Fields gets an opportunity, and he did well with it. Russell ultimately kind of takes over the job, and we saw a little of Fields as it went along. But they let both those guys go. They signed Mason Rudolph, and now the conversation is surrounding Aaron Rodgers. Is that the landing spot? Rodney, what do you think? Aaron Rodgers and Pittsburgh, how does that marriage look to you?
I don't like it, man. And I've been saying this for the last couple of years. And you think about Aaron Rodgers, when he's out there playing, coach, we're literally looking at him, and every time he drops back, we're holding our breath. Every time a defensive lineman is chasing him, we're thinking, oh, holding our breath, nervous because we think he's going to go down. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, why would you want to go back and get a guy that's 40-something years old, a guy that's going to be a pain in the butt in the locker room? It just makes absolutely no sense. And Coach, this is one of the surprises for me because I'm so used to the Pittsburgh Steelers doing things a certain way. If he doesn't want to join the Pittsburgh Steelers, then I would just forget about him, move on, and keep it moving. I wouldn't have allowed this to become such a distraction like it's becoming. Cam Hayward comes out and say, hey, man, we need you. Like, we want you. We would love to have Aaron Rodgers here. Why wouldn't Aaron Rodgers say, you know what, just sign me up? This is the team that I want to play at. They got a good defense. They need to continue to build that offensive line. They brought in DK Metcalf, paid him a lot of money. You still have George Pickens. You got some weapons on the offensive side of the ball and a good defense. Why not sign, Coach?
Yeah, I'm not sure what his holdup is. I'm not sure what the Steelers are doing either. I think they need a long-term answer. They need to find that guy who's going to be the quarterback for the next 10 years. Now, if you're Pittsburgh, though, and you think this can be the Tom Brady effect, I can bring this guy in. Maybe he can play 1 year and take us to the Super Bowl, and I'm willing to roll the dice. Go ahead. But I'm with you. That guy's got to be on board. Aaron Rodgers should be saying, if he wants to do this, yeah, I can take you to the Super Bowl. Let's go. I love these veteran guys. Let's get there and get rolling. Let me get there and get started. Not, hey, I'll get back to you in a little while and we'll see what happens. No, I don't want that from the guy who I think is going to be the hero for me.
Yeah, and if you're Mike Tomlin, you got to put your foot down. You got to say, hey, we need an answer by next Monday. If you can't give us an answer by next Monday, all the best to you. We appreciate your time. And keep it moving, because now it just continues to become a distraction. Players have to answer the same questions in the media. And what those players are looking at, they're looking for some stability. Somebody that we can look at the quarterback position and say, you know what, that's our guy. He may not be the best in the league, but we know he's not going to turn the ball over. He's going to do the right things. He's going to be engaged. He wants to come to training camp, to mini camp, to all the to most of the off-season program. That's being part of a team, not a guy that just thinks he's going to show up in September or August and then all of a sudden it's going to be all good.
And I agree with you, Rob. If you're Aaron Rodgers, what are your alternatives? Where would you rather go than Pittsburgh right now? This is a place that they're a quarterback away from being a contender. You're a great quarterback. Where else are you going to go to have these type of weapons and that type of defense?
Yeah, and I also, Jack, think this is a wake-up call for George Pickens. You look at George Pickens, and we always talk about his talent, but every time we're down there, we talk to some people within the organization. They say the same thing. He's immature. He's a kid that has all the talent in the world, but if he doesn't get right here in the next year or so, he won't be around. And that's something that this should be a wake-up call, because he was supposed to be number one receiver. They paid DK Metcalf $150 million to come in there and be that guy, because they can't depend on you, because they can't trust you. So that should be a wake-up call to that young man, saying that, hey, I just can't be out here doing whatever the heck I want to do, fighting, pushing, shoving, doing all those silly things after the play.
You think they keep them both? Like, you think you keep both those guys, or do you bring in DK to deal Pickens? Like, I feel like there's still maybe could be unwritten there. Coach, you know that program very well. What do you think?
No, I think it's exactly what Rodney's saying. Okay, you got great talent, George. We're trying to show you what that means to put that talent to work and be that guy, be the Pittsburgh Steelers' number one guy. And they've got a chance to do something special. To me, these two guys have a chance to do what Chase and T. Higgins are doing in Cincinnati. That should be the goal. Let's go out and dominate where nobody can handle us. And I think that is what they're trying to get across to Pickens.
Mm-hmm. I'm a little conflicted on the Aaron Rodgers front because from some perspective, maybe he could be a little better than he was, 1 year coming off the Achilles injury. Maybe he's a little more used to playing football again. And that's a serious injury he's coming back from. On the other hand, he's another year older. So now he's 41, 42, and, he's not getting any closer to his prime. He's just moving further and further away from that prime. But there was glimpses earlier in last year where you saw, okay, he can run and scramble a little bit. Then he pulled the hamstring, and then he couldn't move at all. And so we saw both parts of that. And when he can't move, he is not Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that was
Jack, and that's the problem. That's the problem.
That's
you just summed up the problem right there. He will start off great the first month of the season. It's 80 degrees and sunny, 90 degrees outside. And then all of a sudden, as the season goes on, he's going to wear down. And that's when you start to hold your breath. Every time he's getting chased, is it a hamstring? Is it a calf? Is it going to be another Achilles? All those different things. If that were the case, who would you rather have, Coach? Would you rather have Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson back?
Well, here's the thing, and I'm always for let's get that young guy and develop that guy who's going to be our quarterback for the next 15 years. But Peyton Manning and Tom Brady have put a monkey wrench in that. What they have done when they were on their final tour, so to speak, and I can go in and give you one Super Bowl year with unbelievable leadership and the skill that I have. It's not what I was 10 years ago. But if you put the right team around me, I can take you to a Super Bowl. And I think people are getting caught up in that, and Pittsburgh may be getting caught up in that. If Aaron can just do it, then it's worth it. Let's roll the dice. I personally wouldn't, but I could see where a team would.
Yeah. I agree with you, Coach. There's no way I would touch Aaron Rodgers. I mean, just once again, the age factor, and you talk about the future and moving on. I think their focus needs to be on just that, trying to find a young guy or some middle tier quarterback, just something that they can have in place for the future. But Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't even entertain it.
But the only question I would have for you, Rodney, is I think they're getting a little desperate here. I mean, it's like, so they didn't sign Fields, they didn't sign Russ, they got Mason Rudolph. They're running out of options. And so they can bring in a rookie and they can go through that process. But the defense, it's made to win now. Those guys aren't getting any younger on that side of the ball. They got these two great receivers. And so they feel like the window is this year. And if we're a quarterback away, does Rodgers make sense to roll the dice? And we still draft the guy. We still get a young guy in here. And that's, to me, where this becomes complicated for a guy like Mike Tomlin. Do you see it that way?
I don't see it that way. I just like I talked about before. I look at Aaron Rodgers and everything that's happened to him the last few years, and he just does not look like any resemblance of the same quarterback. At times, he's going to give you some great moments in spot duty, but overall, I don't trust him. I don't trust that he's going to stay healthy. I don't trust that it's going to be just a good situation. He is old, man, and this league is not built for old guys. This league is built for young guys. Recovery, practice, games. It's 17 games, and if you make the playoffs, and you're going to end up playing almost close to 20 games. So I have a lot of respect for Aaron and what he's accomplished, but he's not that dude anymore.
And to me, you look at where they are. They had Ben Roethlisberger for a decade and a half, and you had consistent quarterback play, and you were in the hunt. Well, you've got to find that again. You got to replace that. And they've gone, Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and Duck Hodges. And you go on down the line. Find a quarterback that's going to be there 10 years and build around him.
That's it. And Coach, to your point, they also saw the end of Ben Roethlisberger where, he's still Ben Roethlisberger. He's still wearing the same jersey, but towards the very end, that last year or two where it just wasn't the same, and neither were the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, so we'll move it on down. Let's go to the Steelers. So they hold the 21st overall pick. You guys mentioned that they make the deal to bring in DK Metcalf, and so it's the exchange for a second-round pick. That's the 52nd overall pick, and then the late-round pick swap. That feels like a good price to get DK Metcalf at. Coach, would you agree?
It's a good price if DK Metcalf fits into your group. And that's the big thing about free agency. When I was coaching, Jack, and our scouts and our personnel office would come in and say, this guy's available, so-and-so is available, this guy's tremendous and he's available, we can get him. My question would be always, why is he available? If he's great, why is he available? And so that scared me away from the big guys. Adam Vinatieri, okay, that was the one exception for me. Okay, he's available because they think he's too expensive for a kicker. They can draft a young guy, and they did, and it worked out perfectly for New England. But Adam was great, and he was going to fit into what we did. That was a no-brainer. But to me, a lot of these expensive guys who are out there on the market, why are they not re-signing with their own team?
Yeah, as far as DK Metcalf, I thought Mike Tomlin wanted to go out and just really get that one dominant guy, that bully type like a Hines Ward. But with DK Metcalf, that's exactly what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a big physical guy who goes out there and he bullies people around. But I also believe that it was to impact George Pickens. Once again, he's the number one receiver. Now you come in, DK Metcalf gets all this money. And the thing about DK Metcalf, you say what you want about him, but he works hard. He works hard every single day. You look at his body, you talk to players around him, talk about his relentless work ethic. And that's what George Pickens needs to do. He needs to get next to him, go to the weight room, get stronger, gain more weight, do the right things. And when you have guys doing that, then you can bring the team together and eventually you find your quarterback, coach. But I think you're spot on. They need that one quarterback that can be there for a decade at least.
Good luck. Everybody's looking for it. If you find it, boys, it's sweet. Let's move to a team that has found it. They're in the AFC North, and it's the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is really a fascinating offseason for Cincinnati, fellas, because they elect to pay Jamar Chase, and not only that, pay T. Higgins, who shared the same agent, and do the deal at the same time. They both flew on the same G5 to the tarmac in Cincinnati. I don't think a G5's ever touched down on that tarmac. But what does it say about the state of the Bengals franchise right now, Rod, that they're willing to pay both these guys at the same time?
Yeah, it looks like they need a new general manager because there's no way I'm giving both of those guys over $100 million. I said it last year at the beginning of the season. They should pay Jamar Chase. It would have cost them maybe $35, $36 million. Now it's over 40. And for me, T. Higgins, I love T. Higgins. I would have kept him on a one-year deal. And I would have used that big money that they gave him to go out and solidify the right side of my offensive line. Get a guard, get a tackle, get a guard, get a center. Get some resemblance of an offensive line. Those guys are the shiny objects, and you got to pay Jamar. But T. Higgins was a guy that you didn't have to make that level of commitment to. Use that money, spend it on offensive line. And I tell you this, Coach, you had some really great receivers. But the heart and soul of your team was those front guys, was the offense and defensive line. All those other guys were really good, but he solidified the offense and defensive line, and that's why the Colts were such a pain in the butt for everybody.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. This smacks of a little desperation to me, and it smacks of Cincinnati leaving their game plan. They have never done this before, and I don't know why they did it right now. My sense is that Joe Burrow went in and said, I really need these guys, and I can operate, and when we have these guys, we move the ball, we score, and they're great. And they're going to be fantastic on offense. They're going to be tough to deal with because these two guys are great. But my question is, at what cost? Okay, as Rodney was saying, do I help the offensive line now? Can I get some players there? I let my defensive coordinator go. I may not have Trey Hendrickson now, my best pass rusher. What is going to happen with this defense now that I put all this money in this position? I was talking with Matt Casey, our producer, before we went on about this. That same situation happened to us when I was in Indianapolis. We had Edgerrin James come up. His contract is up. He can hit free agency. Hey, we can re-sign him. And Bill Polian said, we can, and we can make it work. But I promise you, if we re-sign Edgerrin, we're not going to have Dallas Clark. We're not going to have Reggie Wayne. We're not going to have Dwight Freeney down the road. We can make it for a year and we can go win a Super Bowl but we're going to lose those guys. We're not going to be able to re-sign them. I went home that night and I came back and I said, as much as I love Edge, we can't do that. We got to think about the future. If we let him go, we'll draft a young guy and develop him. We draft Joseph Adai. He ends up being a good player for us. We re-sign those other guys, and they can be long after I retired, they were still in the hunt. So I just look at Cincinnati, and yeah, you're going to have a great offense, and you're going to throw the ball, and people are going to have a hard time covering you. But what is the rest of your team going to look like?
Yeah. Yeah, I look at that. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I think you guys are all over it, man. I totally agree. Rod, just a little food for thought here. So you're going to pay roughly $125 million in 1 year to 3 offensive players. So the cap is $279 million next year, right? So let's say that they're going to pay Hendrickson too, because that's the talk right now is that they want to sign all of these guys. So they give him $25 million. So that would be 55%, over 55% of the cap on 4 players. That would be Burrow, the 2 wide receivers, and then Hendrickson, the pass rusher. So it's basically the same team that they had last year that, lost all those games. And I know they were close games and they finished 9-8 in the whole deal, but it's the same team. Now you're just paying them exponentially more money. I don't know how that makes you better.
What they're banking on is, okay, at the start of last year, Chase was there, but he wasn't practicing. T. Higgins is there, but he's not feeling good because he's on the tag. So if I've got all these guys and they're feeling good and they're practicing, we're going to win. Well, you better, because time is going to run out, as you say. When you look at that cap, you better win this year.
Yeah, my point too would be, would I rather have T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson? Trey Hendrickson, he's been a good player for a long time. I watched him when he was in New Orleans, covering him basically his entire career. And when he transitioned over to the Bengals, he continued to play at a high level. So to me, I don't know why the hesitation was so difficult to pay this man when he's giving you 15, 16 sacks every single year. But then, you want to open up the playbook, the checkbook for T. Higgins. And a wide receiver is fine, coach, but I'd rather have a guy getting after that quarterback, because as a wide receiver, when you're sitting on that sideline, you're hoping and begging, please get a sack, please get an interception. And if you're not paying these guys, you're not going to have the ability to do that. And Trey Hendrickson is an unbelievable player, man, the impact that he has. He's not flashy, but he looks up and then all of a sudden half the season he's got 8 or 9 sacks. And you're like, man, this dude is balling on a bad team. So if it's between those 2 guys, I'm taking the pass rusher every single time. And that's no shade to T. Higgins. It's just that if you're trying to get to the playoffs and the Super Bowl, it's not because of wide receivers. It's because of those guys up front.
I would go back to something Bill Polian used to say to me all the time during this time of the year. He would say, Tony, draft for need, pay for special. If it's special, pay for it. Okay, if it's just something we need, let's go out and draft it.
Wow. Yeah. I like that. Bill Polian, he's in the Hall of Fame, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Polian.
Bill's in the Hall of Fame, right, Coach?
Yes. And deservedly so. Put together 3.
Over a long time, 16 years, he's been telling me these stories. So I'm getting all the inside scoop of the Colts.
Yeah. And you know the truth, if they had paid Jamar last offseason, not only had the price have been a lot less, they would have got a better deal for the team. They already knew they were going to pay him. They weren't going to let Jamar Chase leave, but they got kind of greedy trying to let that play out. And so now they end up getting both guys, both of them at a premium price, because that, wide receiver market continued to rise. And I think you're exactly right, Coach. It's really interesting to me because, Carson Palmer, when he was here and he was the face of the franchise, tried to dictate terms. And I want to do this, and we got to do it this way if we're going to win. And they didn't listen to him. And he eventually said, forget you guys, I'm leaving. I'll retire if I have to. But Burrow has walked into ownership, and it's evident. And he has said, I want this and this and this and this. And they've done all those things. Now, is it the right team building strategy to have your quarterback making GM decisions? We can debate that all day long, but it appears that that's what's happening. They're building like a 7-on-7 team. We haven't even got to the fact that Gesicki, the tight end, they paid him too, Coach.
Yeah. And when we watched Cincinnati play last year, what did we say? If they can protect the passer, they'll be okay. If they can run the ball, they'll be okay. Those things haven't changed. They're still going to have to protect Burrow, and they're still going to have to run the ball, and they're going to have to stop people.
What are they doing? They're paying wide receivers, and they're not even thinking about the guys up front. Since Joe Burrow has been in the National Football League, he continues to get hit, get harassed, and get hurt because of that offensive line. and you're freaking thinking about paying T. Higgins, keep him on a 1-year deal for 20-something million so you're not tied up to him. And you get some freaking offensive linemen in here, man, so you can push people around and Joe Burrow can have plenty of time to do what he does. I just don't understand why it's so hard.
It's been 6 years that he's been with them now, and every year they've had a below average offensive line. He's been running for his life, and he takes big hits. We've seen him get lost for the year multiple times, and but that's where they are. That's where they are, and they kind of keep going back to it. Let's get to your team now, Rod. It's time to move it along to the New England Patriots, because the Patriots are making all kinds of moves. I mean, they're just going after it. I'm loving what Braves is doing with the free agent market here. Let's start with the most recent, Stefon Diggs. 3 years, $69 million, $23 million per year, which based on where the receiver market is not the top of it. Granted, he's 31 years old, coming off a torn ACL. Your reaction to this deal?
Well, to me, I like it. I think it looks like a 1-year deal, like a 1 year, basically 1 year, $26 million deal. So they have a lot of money initially invested in the guy, but it's only a 1-year deal. The biggest thing for him is come in, make sure he's healthy, and make sure that he's on good behavior. Stefon Diggs, you know how he is with his personality. And Mike Vrabel, he's not going to tolerate that. But the one thing I do like about Stefon is Stefon's a hard worker. He works hard. And that's something that a lot of the players, the coaches respect. You come in, you be a pro. He shouldn't have any problems with Braves. I actually like the move, Coach.
Well, I'm just wondering, what are you getting? Okay, Stefon Diggs, I remember the miracle in Minnesota, and then the next year he's in Buffalo. And then, he's playing great ball for Buffalo, and then he's in Houston. And they've got a young quarterback who loves him, and now all of a sudden he's in New England. So, what's going on there? If Stefon Diggs comes in and plays ball, and you're right, if Mike Vrabel can lay that hammer down and say, this is what we need from you, and this is how you got to be a Patriot, and he plays like he can play, it'll be good for him.
Yeah, and I think he's getting a little older now, and people are not going to deal with his antics as much because he's coming off injury, he's getting older, and he's getting, and he's expensive, $26 million. So I think he understands that I have to come in here. I got a lot to prove. I got to be able to prove first that I can get through an entire season without missing games. And then I have to prove that I can still play on a Pro Bowl level. If he does that and the pressure's on him. But to me, I love the Milton Williams signing because it gives them that pass rushing big guy in the interior of that defense. Not just a run stopper, but a pass rusher. And the thing about Milton, Coach, that I have to that I'll be watching, what will be his impact without Jalen Carter? Jalen Carter received a lot of double and triple teams, Josh Sweat, Nolan Harrison. So in Philly, he had a lot of one-on-ones. But in New England, he's going to be their version of Jalen Carter, where he's receiving all the attention. Will he still be able to dominate and do those type of things? But that's something that you pay close attention to.
Yeah, and they paid him 4 years, 104. Yeah, that's a lot of money. It was interesting just reading about him because you watch him play all year. He only played 48% of the defensive snaps in 2024 for Philly. So to your point, Rodney, he was part of that rotation. And as we know, Howie Roseman, he builds a deep rotation. He likes to on that defensive line. But when you go from playing less than half to now being the guy, I mean, that's a big bet that he's going to be able to make that elevation and jump sort of at this middle part, really the prime of his career here.
And Vrabel talked about that. Vrabel said, hey, you better get in shape because you're going to be playing a lot more than 48, 50%. You're going to be basically playing the entire game when you pay somebody that type of money. But I also like the Harold Landry. Harold Landry's been a good pass rusher for a long time in Tennessee. Go ahead, Coach, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, no, you're talking about an underrated guy who was tough and wreaks havoc in the middle there. Yeah, that to me was a great signing.
And also you think about Carlton Davis. Christian Gonzalez, he's turned himself in one of the top 7 or 8 cornerbacks in the National Football League. And then when you get a guy like Carlton Davis, a tough physical guy that can play man, he can play zone, and just an overall veteran, I think it really adds to their secondary. So I like the guys that Mike Vrabel has brought in. These are guys that are team guys that, everything's about the team and it's not about me. And I'm really excited for this defense in particular.
Yeah, and they paid him. Davis 3 years, $60 million. That deal is 34.5, fully guaranteed. Is the Super Bowl champ, of course, with Tampa back in. We were talking the Tom Brady days earlier, and then he went to Detroit last year. He made Detroit better last year, and maybe more than anything, you felt his absence. Remember when he broke the jaw late in the year, Coach?
Oh,
And
that hurt them. Yeah,
it hurt him. It hurt him. You like the signing of Carlton Davis as well?
I do, and I think they're going into a great system. Mike Vrabel, a no-nonsense coach. I know how they're going to play on defense. If that carries over to the offensive side and Stefon Diggs plays with that type of mentality, I think they, watch out.
And last point for me, guys, if the Pats are sitting at 4, which I think 4 is a heck of a spot. I mean, you can get whatever you want. And I think, and just like I said a couple months ago, Coach, and you laughed at me, I said, I want Will Campbell as my left tackle, and that has not changed. It's a lot of talented guys, a lot of, you can get, once again, distracted by the shiny objects, the wide receivers, and all these guys. But at the end of the day, I'm taking that left tackle. I know this is a young man that's going to come in. He's going to be my starter from day one. He'll probably be my left tackle the next 10, 11 years. And that he's going to do the right thing. And if you listen to him and know his personality, you know he's a leader. He comes in right away and he's going to become that leader. So now him and Drake Maye, they get an opportunity to grow together. That is awesome for 2 young players. And they're cheap. They're still on rookie deals, man. It's not like he's going to come in making $35 million a year, So,
that's good points. Very good points.
Yeah, I feel like Vrabel has a little Harbaugh in his DNA. We saw Harbaugh do that in the top 5 picks last year. Sure worked out with them and Joe Alt. We'll see if they do the exact same thing. Yeah, I think that's smart. Let's go to Chicago, talking about the offensive line. They have a new head coach in Ben Johnson. What a hire that was to be able to go find him. And they've been loading up, Coach, on their offensive line to try to protect Caleb Williams a little bit.
Yeah, and you kind of see the plan. Last year, they went out and got weapons, and they got receivers, and they got running backs. Well, now this year, we're going to solidify the line. And I like what they're doing. They're putting a good package around this young man, Rod.
Absolutely. And Ben Johnson knows the importance of offensive line. He just came from one of the biggest, most physical offensive lines in all of football. So after all these years, he's the one guy that comes into the Chicago Bears and says, I need to build the offensive line, because this is something I've been saying about the Bears for years. They need to build this offensive line. So I like what he's done. And I also like what he did. He went out and he got Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett is a really good football player from the Atlanta Falcons. He put him on the defensive line. They signed him to like a 3-year contract. And what a great move that was. I mean, the guy can still play at a high level. He's going to come in. His motivation will be a lot different playing for a new team. And I just think that Ben Johnson, he's making a lot of the right moves, Coach. And just kind of what we talked about and the way we were boosting him up during the season, he has not disappointed. I think he's doing a fabulous job right now.
I would agree with you. I really got some admiration for him, because you're right. When we would go in there and watch those Detroit Lions, the first thing we'd say is, man, look at this offensive line. Look at these monsters. And he hasn't gone into Chicago and said, I'm the smartest guy in the room. I've got the best offense. All I need to do is have weapons. No, he said, let me recreate what I had in Detroit. Let me get a big, bad offensive line just like that. And he realizes where that bread was buttered. So I have to take my hat off to that.
And you know what they're going to be able to do, Jack? They're going to be able to run the football. They're going to give Caleb a little bit more time. He's going to get the ball out of Caleb's hands, but he's going to be committed to running the football. That's what Detroit Lions do. They run the football, and that's exactly what Ben. Then they sprinkle in some trick plays and some deep passes just to get you a little nervous, and then they come right back with the run or the screen game, Coach.
Yeah, and if you're Chicago and you're playing outdoors in that stadium, shouldn't that be your MO? Let's be dominant. Let's be physical. Let's have people have to come in here and deal with that. And I do. I like where they're headed.
Yeah. If he can create that Jared Goff type environment for Caleb Williams, I think Caleb would start having some fun. So they signed Drew Dahlman. He's the center. That was 3 years, $42 million, 28 fully guaranteed. Joe Thuney comes over from the Chiefs, and then Jonah Jackson as well. He was acquired from the Los Angeles Rams. That was for a 2025 6th round pick. Let's move it on down, though. The Washington Commanders. This is a team that was right there. I mean, they just came out of nowhere this past year. Probably one of the most fun teams to watch. They hit on quarterback like that, and a rocket ship they became. And now they're trying to go get that championship. And they're not afraid of adding these veteran players, guys. We saw it a season ago, and they do it again. Deebo Samuel from San Francisco. And they also go get Laremy Tunsil. Rodney, what do you make of the offseason moves from the Commanders?
I said this a couple years ago that they should have traded Deebo Samuel a couple years ago, because when I would go there and watch him play, he didn't seem like he was super happy or like super engaged. I knew it was time for him to transition to a different team, and I think this is going to really get him excited. The one thing I would say is, he has to work really hard as he's starting to get older to make sure that he keeps his weight down. He's a thicker guy, and it's easy for him to put on weight and to get, to have to deal with that. But I like Deebo. Laremy Tunsil is another story. I think he got really complacent out in Houston. The guy had led the league with 19 penalties, and you're paying him over $20 million a year. So we'll see if he can get back focused and start playing at a higher level. But I really like the Deebo Samuel move.
Yeah, I like Deebo as well. And I think he's going to really benefit from being there. When he's in San Francisco had some weaponry, but you went out there feeling like, I got to take this guy away. I got to stop him. Well, you've got McLaurin. You've got all these other weapons there. You've got this quarterback that can move around and get him the ball in a lot of ways. I think he's going to thrive in this offense. And I think this really gives the Commanders another weapon.
And, Coach, you can actually put him at running back, too. Cliff Kingsbury, put him in the slot, put him at wide receiver, put him at running back. All these different things you can use Deebo. And Deebo, like when you go to a different team that has embraced you, you get this second wind about you. You get this second football life. And it brings out a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, not only in you, but in your family, because it reflects in your attitude. You've been in a place a long time, and now you get an opportunity to go play with the hottest young quarterback in the National Football League, a team that's definitely ascending, adding a lot of new players. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for this opportunity for Deebo Samuel, because they're not far off. They're not far off. They have a good draft. They'll be right there in the NFC Championship game again.
And I have to go back. We had the Commanders against Tampa in the playoff game, and talking to the Tampa coaches, the one thing they feared more than anything from the Commanders was their quick screen game. They said that is so good. You have to put so much pressure on Daniels and all the RPOs and things. Well, now you get Deebo Samuel out there running quick screen. Who would be a better quick screen guy in the league than Deebo in one-on-one situations? So I think they've got the perfect guy to complement what they do.
Yeah, I'm with you. And they got some good minutes out of guys like Zach Ertz, who, a lot of teams felt like he may have his best days behind him. They got really good minutes out of Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner. Some teams probably weren't willing to bet on Bobby at this point in his career. And so it makes sense why they would keep going down.
That's why teams are dumb.
And that was proven to be a fact, Rod. Let's go to Denver. Denver Broncos, another squad beefing up the defense. Dre Greenlaw, he comes in to play linebacker for them. They sign him to a 3-year deal. Talanoa Hufanga, one of our favorites from out there in San Francisco, he heads there as well. And DJ Jones, he also goes back to the Broncos. So what do you think of what they've done defensively in Denver, Rod?
I love what they're doing. Talanoa Hufanga, I mean, he's an all-pro safety before he gets hurt. And he's missed some time, but I think they get a guy that's hungry, a guy that works with Troy Polamalu, smart kid. I mean, he's absolutely the best. His personality, his attitude, he's going to be fine there. And Drake Greenlaw, I mean, he's one of the top linebackers in all of football. He didn't get a lot of hype, a lot of pub because he played next to Fred Warner, which was unfortunate. But this is definitely one of the top 10 linebackers in all of football. So they instantly beef up on the defensive side of the ball. But also, I'm going to tell you a sneaky pick, which I thought this was unbelievable. Evan Ingram at tight end. What a threat he's going to be. That speed. You don't hear about the drops anymore because he struggled with drop passes. You don't hear about any of that stuff. The guy is a baller, and he brings a tremendous amount of speed to that offense. Watch out for him, Coach.
Yeah, and I do love what they're doing. Sean Payton, most offensive coaches, they want to load up on offense. And I think what he said is, I've got a good young quarterback. I've got some guys that I trust. We're going to be fine on. I'll get that going. Let me beef up the defense. Let me get some athletes in there. And that's got to make their whole team feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. And there is one rule change. People say that nobody cares about defense and rule changes, guys. While we're on the topic of defense, though, we did have a little bit of an idea floated, and it was from Detroit. And they're thinking about defensive holding and not making that an automatic first down. So, Rod, I know you never held, but you did play in the secondary. What are your thoughts on an idea like this and finally a rule shifting?
He's ready to come back and play now. He can suit up again. Make it 3rd and 10. I'll just grab
Jack.
the guy, and we'll go again on 3rd and 5. I love it.
Yes, Jack, I admit I used to hold a little bit, okay? But I actually like the rule because it's tough, man, defensively when it's 3rd down and 20 and you might, like within 5 or 6 yards, you might tug on a guy and the official calls it and all of a sudden it's a first down and it just absolutely ruins everything, your confidence and everything on the defensive side of the ball. I would say just keep it just make it a 5-yard penalty. And keep it the same down, do the play over, and give them 5 yards and keep it moving. Because if you think about it, if it's a pass interference on the defense, it's a spot foul. So if it's a 40-yard spot foul, then if it's an offensive pass interference, why wouldn't you go 40 yards and punish them back? You know what I mean? So it's always unfair to the defense. And now this kind of is trying to level the playing field a little bit.
Yeah. I think a lot of the rule changes that we have had has been to make the offense there and to light the scoreboard up. And we've done that. We've made offense real easy to play now. But I am going to take the other side of the fence. They're going to have to vote on this rule. And what the owners are going to say is, man, if it's 3rd down and 12 and I can play tough and physical, if the guy gets away from me, I'll just hold him and it'll only be 3rd and 7 now. So is that going to really influence people to play dirty football and to play physical? And is that what we want? I think it would benefit the defense. I think it would help, but I don't think it's going to get voted in.
Wait. So if it's 3rd down and 12 and it's a 5-yard penalty, well, it's 3rd down and 7 then. So it's a lot better than 3rd down and 12. It may not be a first down, but it's still a lot better than 3rd down and 12. Okay. I was just trying to see if I got you.
Yeah. But if I'm an offensive guy, I would say, no, I don't want that defender to be able to hold me. I want to put some fear in his mind. If he holds me, it's an automatic first down. So he's got to play me a little more honest. And now I've got a chance to go. Will it encourage defenders to play more reckless? And will there be more holding penalties because guys will hold more because it's not an automatic first down?
Of course. Right? I mean, I feel like the most obvious answer ever. You don't even say, hey, I got a new idea for a rule change if you're not even thinking a little bit about that, right? I mean, I think that the scenario you just presented, Coach, I think is right on point. Like I think about the college rule with defensive pass interference. They don't do a 40-yard spot foul. It's a 15-yard penalty. So it's worth it in some scenarios to just tackle the guy. If it saves a touchdown, give up the free 15. So this to me would be a lesser example of that, Rodney. Is that right?
Hey, guys, I told my son this when he was at Tennessee. I said, hey, if you ever get beat, like really like off the line and you trip or something, man, you go and try to tackle the receiver, grab him, do whatever you have to do to slow him down. You know what I mean? And that's going to be the same mindset of most defenders.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see whether this passes because there is that play, we all see it. It's 3rd down and 20 and you get a holding penalty at the line of scrimmage and it's an automatic first down. You said offense didn't earn that. What are we doing? So you do think that's a little unfair. But now I don't want to see guys get tackled and held because it's only a 5-yard penalty and we can line up and go again. So I don't know what the answer is.
Coach, what if you make it a 10-yard penalty? Adding 5 more yards, that's significant. So make it a 10-yard penalty, not just a 5-yard penalty, because 10 yards is significant, Coach.
Yeah. And you guys got me fired up. I feel like it's August right now. I'm about to put my helmet on, go do some.
Let's go to training camp.
Man, you
I'm
about to
ready
go
to
to the
go.
golf course. Stop playing.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going. Hey, what a pleasure. I appreciate you guys doing this. Maybe we'll do another one as the draft approaches before or
Absolutely.
after. We'll make it happen, man. Really appreciate it. FNIA podcast, we're out.
Great to be back together.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.